Today we're fitting some bespoke sliders on some wardrobes we've made. We've got a 4-door one here and a 2-door in the other one that I'll show you in a minute. I'll do a more detailed video about this at another point, but I wanted to just talk to you about the runner system that we're using, because it seemed a great opportunity to make the sort of video that I would have wished I could find before I started using this. So this is a Rothley product, Aries 2, but I think it's marketed under different names in some places. Fairly simple, fairly cost-effective product, but with quite a good weight-bearing capacity. A lot cheaper than the Hayfully systems that you'd get, so that's why we went for it. Now the way the system works is you have a lower roller which you fit, that hole there is 22 millimeters off the bottom of the door. I'll show it you in a minute. You put a screw in the other slotted hole at the same height. The roller should be at least 30 millimeters in from the edge of the door, and you just have a roller at each side. So as you can imagine, that slot allows you to adjust the height, and then you lock it off with the holes at the top. The minimum panel thickness is 16 millimeters, and the screws that come with the set for that purpose are these pan heads, and you should use the pan heads, not the countersunk ones, for that fitting. The upper fitting is like this, again 2 of them on each door, and as you can see there, you've got a screw that you loosen, and that U-shaped profile slides up to engage with the track. I'll show you what the tracks look like. That's the profile, so the top and bottom tracks are identical. So in a set for 2 doors, you get 4 bits of track, and you mount them appropriately spaced on the top and the bottom. So here are the bottom ones. Now, as with any sort of sliding door mechanism, you need to have a good study of the instructions, and on this piece of paper, which comes wrapped around the tube that you receive, you find instructions on the back, which you can also Google and download if you want to study them in advance of fitting it. Something to notice is here, look, if the door thickness is less than 18 millimeters, you would fit the tracks butting up to each other in that arrangement there. For these doors, the total thickness, because they've got a sort of rim around a 16 millimeter veneered MDF panel, total thickness is 32 millimeters, so the tracks had to be fitted well in the arrangement that you can see. Now, I was fighting against a few competing factors here. There's the width of the frame, which is 4-inch or 94 millimeter plain finished thickness, and I wanted the front of the door to be within that, but I didn't want the back of the door to be so far back that it would foul on the cabinet, which is positioned tight to the frame. So you have to figure out that kind of thing depending on your particular arrangement. Now the main thing I want to talk about is the fitting of these things. The challenge with this system is that the height of the door, according to the specifications that come in the instructions, the height of the door should only be 8 millimeters shorter than the opening, and that's shown somewhere here. Yeah, there's a diagram there that indicates that, and similarly here. So something that I missed is how crucial it is for the screws that fit the track. They really do need to be as countersunk flush as possible, because they do come very close to where the door runs. And the other thing that caught me out is that the door then at that height is taller. Let's just see. The door is taller than the space between the tracks, so you can't get the door into the back track past the front tracks. So we've just started fitting these, and I decided for this run of 4 just to take the top 2 tracks off drop the bottom rollers onto the bottom track and then engage them with the second bits of upper track. So I think you can only get tracks at 2 meters, so we just use 2 sets for this. So that means on this one I can get all the doors in, because I can get the 2 at the back and then the 2 at the front, and then add the top 2 tracks and space them out as they should be. Now when it comes to the other room, which is just a 2-door, we've already built the frame around it, and it's just a single, well, it's 2 tracks but they're not split, so we may have to sort of offer them in, and what you're meant to do is offer the top in, engage the U section, and then drop the bottom back with the wheels engaged in the bottom track, and then screw the bottom track in, which seems like it'd be a bit of a headache. So I'm not sure if I'm going to do it that way. I might possibly even take the side piece of the frame off on that other project. So let me show you the back of this door so you get a better idea. If I can just get this thing up here. There's your top thing, U-section thing, and then down below is your wheel. Now the way we did this was to put a 5mm packer, so that's a 3 and a 2. We got the door on, and then we just lifted it onto that, so those packed under there but nearer to the wheel, and then we made our adjustment. We tightened the slotted screw and then drove in that additional screw, but I haven't fully committed to that yet, so I've held off on that screw. And what I may do is put 1 or 2 screws just above the metal there as an additional security, because this is only MDF. Now I did pre-drill for those screws with a 3mm drill, only going in maybe 3 or 4mm to get it started, and then I felt it grabbed pretty well after that. Now the action on them is, it's good if there aren't packers in the way. The action on the wheels is pretty good. The wheels run smoothly. When I first fitted it though, I did have this issue where the screws, even though I had countersunk them, I'd used a 4mm through hole, and those holes have to be at 250mm spacings, and then I countersunk it with I think a 7mm drill bit, just because that's what I could find, and a proper countersink is too wide, so it would scuff the raised bit of the track. So I thought it was countersunk enough, but the screw head was still sort of coming below flush by a millimetre or 2. And because the tolerance is only 8mm, the door is 8mm less than the opening, and I packed it up 5mm, because I'd always rather pack it up more at the bottom, because gravity will only pull it down if anything. Only then had 3mm to play with at the top. So I had to take all the screws out, countersink them deeper with an 8mm bit, about as far as I dared, without drilling right through the metal, and then screw the screws back up. Now the instructions don't recommend using your really tiny screws, your POSI 1 screws. They do recommend the POSI 2 screws. So you do have to countersink quite wide for them to sit flush. I think that's about it on that system. I think that gives you the sort of overview that I know would have helped me before using it. So here's an update on the runners. We've got these doors in using the method that I showed you, and that worked fine. All the doors just moved over to that side with the runners off the top there, and then put back on and everything adjusted in, and they're looking good. So I fully fixed that with the additional screws on the bottom rollers. Now this room has been much more of a challenge. We found that the only way to make it work, to get them in, was to take the bottom tracks off. And we're halfway, well, we've mostly done it, but we've not fully fixed it. So I took that off, and Jonathan had to hold the door, starting with the back one, engage it up to the top track. As you can see, the tolerance is very small, so we had to get the top in, engaged with that U-shaped fitting, whilst at the bottom, with the door held forward, I had to offer the channel up into the wheels, hold it with both hands and push the door in with the channel, which was very difficult to do and doesn't seem to me like a great way of designing the system. We had to do that because we couldn't take the side off, which if we'd done that, it would have allowed us just to slide the doors in, but we'd already fitted this in such a way it was going to be quite destructive to take it off. We did find in the process that there was a little bit of out of squareness, and this brings me to the other problem. This is a real oversight in the planning, because the units behind have a plinth. So this has a 100mm plinth for levelling purposes, and that actually had gable mounted feet with a loose removable shelf, so we levelled the unit and then put that shelf in and then built the drawers up on top, and then in front of that the solid oak base was levelled on packers underneath that, but what that meant is that we've got this surface here tight to the back of the doors, which completely removes any possibility of adjusting the fittings on the backs of these doors, which I'm not sure I can get to that, but the wheels. So we had to lock the wheels in position first, so we then had no levelling capacity afterwards. So that's been a real challenge, and I've had to go back to the oak plinth and just change the packing under that to help to level the doors. So we've got it done. You always do get it done. But it was tricky, and so that's something to be aware of with this runner system, is if you can't access the end of the runner, you are forced to offer it up to the top one and bring it in with the runner held up to the wheels.